So I'm going to tell you a story about my 1990 Volkswagen Corrado G60. The first couple episodes is just going to be articles I've written early on. They're now modified for narration for YouTube. This series is going to be ongoing because history unfolds itself every day. And my car tells a story. Everything tells a story. Every action I've taken in my life put me to this point and your own. The very first experience I've had with the Volkswagen Corrado wasn't even in real life. My first experience came out in Forza Horizon. For those who have not played the video game, the first car that you get is a Volkswagen Corrado VR6, and I fell in love with it. That car just has the look. Something about the late 80s, early 90s cars just look awesome in my eyes. Now, a hobby that my father and I both enjoyed doing together is looking at cars on Craigslist. This was about Christmas time, and I got my driver's license on my 18th birthday in September. I've been borrowing my mother's 2005 Audi A4, or been driving my dad's Ford Explorer Sport Track that he's been using as a work truck for quite some time at that point. It wasn't that I didn't want a car, I just couldn't afford one. And we already had an abundance of cars at the household. So, in the tobacco-scented garage, my dad and I were browsing Craigslist for Subarus and Chevys. I mentioned that I liked Volkswagen Corrado and how they were relatively rare. So, we started looking at Volkswagens. Next morning, my dad drove up the driveway with the car that I now call CC. Two previous owners. The first was the guy who bought it, and he changed the exhaust a little bit, he messed with the supercharger a little bit, and he also did a lot of other, shall we say, just DIY hacks that he did to the car that I'm trying to fix now. But anyway, he gave it to a younger woman in the family, and she just didn't care about Volkswagens or cars in general. And she didn't want any part of the enthusiast life. So after getting harassed by the Corrado and it eventually having some engine problems, she just sold it to, well, my dad. So yeah, my dad bought me my first car. Yes, I understand people's reaction when I tell them this. No, I don't come from daddy's money. It was my first car. He wanted just to be part of that. And honestly, because it's a gift, I love it. Now, I need to talk about my friend. This is as much as his story as it is mine. Colin's been my next door neighbor for well over 15 years. He was into cars since his dad got him his first little Tykes car. Without him, I probably wouldn't care about cars the way I do now. His first car was a first generation Ford SHO, and then he moved to Golf GTI 6 months later, maybe a year, skipping a few cars that he had, like a Ford Escort and a Chevy Tahoe. And now he owns an Audi A4. Whenever I have an adventure that I want to tackle, this is the guy that I usually take. So when I got my car, I was excited. I immediately sent him a text message telling him to come over to my house. And then when he finally did arrive, he burst through the front door screaming, "Is that your fucking car?" Now, he loves old Volkswagens. Old Volkswagens are just one of those things that, you either love it or you don't. And they all have their own kind of quirks and style, I guess. But anyway, moving on. In total, the Corrado cost my dad about $3,000. He bought it for about $3,000. And later, I got the title as a graduation gift. And I honestly believe that if I bought the car myself, I would not have loved it nearly as much as I do. It was a gift, and it's also my first car. We did not get the corrado running and capable of driving to school every day until the last half of my senior year. Although being a stock car, it turned heads, and people wanted to park next to me, wherever I would be, and that did lead to seeing some pretty interesting cars. And people also started following me while I'm out on cruises. Some follow for quite some time and then break off to go do their own little adventure, and some just follow me to the gas station. We just talk cars for a while. It sounds creepy. It is creepy, but it's kind of fun. It's like picking up hitchhikers. People who have never picked up a hitchhiker think it's creepy. People who have picked up hitchhikers know it's creepy, but it's pretty fun because that's a great way of meeting people. Um, so unlike a Golf or M3, the corrado does not blend into traffic. Nobody could get confused for any other car. Or if they do, it's usually getting confused for a Porsche 944 or a Scirocco, both of which were spiritual brethren of the corrado. And there's nothing else like a corrado. I had middle-aged men get out of their Porsches and BMWs and stop me at the gas station to start asking me questions. So, one day in the summer, Kyle and I were working on the brakes in my car. The hard lines on the brake burst. I don't exactly remember what happened, but that's not what matters. What matters was we had the car on jack stands. I always put on the handbrake when I parked the corrado. I never kept it in gear. And Colin always keeps the car in gear, but never uses a handbrake. Well, to get the car up on jack stands, he put the car in gear, because if you pull the handbrake, it would be useless. It locks up the back wheels, and we needed to get to the back wheels. So he put it in gear, and we jacked the car up. And then for him to check what's wrong with the car, because we were trying to figure out what was wrong, he crawled underneath the car. He told me to start the car. Now, a little quirk about the Volkswagen Corrado. You could start the car while it's in gear. You don't have to press the clutch either. It will just start. And will lurch forward off the jack stands and then onto your friend's head. So that was fun, and we took him to the hospital. He's still completely fine. Well, he has been completely fine. There was no major injuries. Although he did have to take some antibiotics because he scratched up his back really bad, and he scratched his head a little bit, which led to a bald spot. But anyway, and those antibiotics kind of mixed with some other meds kind of caused some confusion, and he had to go back to the hospital. But yeah, after that, shortly after, I lost my factory job. It was a factory job. It wasn't all that fun, but whatever. I needed some work. I needed money. I needed to fix my corrado, and I fell into a pyramid scheme that I honestly thought that I was going to make it big. On my way of getting licensing for that pyramid scheme that I needed, my corrado broke down. I was riding the clutch, and I could not go over 35 miles per hour. So, there, in a Taco Bell parking lot, my car broke down. I had no clue how to fix it. And it was late November in Wisconsin, and we have no garage to work in. We towed it back to my house using some straps and my dad's, he probably had the 3500, the 2010 3500 Chevy Silverado. Don't remember for sure that. Yeah, that's what he had at that time. So yeah, we towed it back to my house, and I bought another car so I could do my job. That car was a Sebring. don't buy a Chrysler Sebring. Just don't buy a Chrysler Sebring. Anyway, and my corrado sat at my house for it to get repaired. Eventually, I left the pyramid scheme penniless, and I got a new job. And I went through a series of unfortunate events leading me to push back the fixing of my corrado. So a year has passed, and I finally saved enough money to get a new engine for my Volkswagen Corrado. I took it to the shop, and they told me that I had no compression. They ran a wet test, which requires you to put oil in a cylinder to see if it have any compression. Well, it didn't have any compression whatsoever. So I was putting off, because I needed my engine to be completely rebuilt. So I kind of put off the corrado just a little bit so I could have a little bit of money so I could eat while my corrado was getting fixed, because having money is nice. And I totaled my truck. I'm going to talk about this a little bit further in depth, but that Ford Explorer Sport Track, I bought it from my dad, and there's a story behind that. But anyway, I flipped the truck on some ice and then into a ditch. I walked out without a scratch, but extremely pissed off that I would have to buy something to replace my truck so I could just do my job, or I didn't have any money for the corrado whatsoever. So then I didn't buy a new car. I kind of revived a 95 Toyota RAV4. Not the best car in the world, but I'm still driving it, so I'll talk about that in our episode. So then, surprise, surprise, I lose another job. Well, I had the money for my corrado to get it fixed. Wasn't planning on getting rid of that money. So I decided that I'm just going to get my corrado fixed. Well, it took a month to find a repair shop that would even look at my corrado. And it was just no longer about the money. It was just that nobody wanted to look at a Volkswagen that was made by Carmen. In the meantime, I removed the pleather cover for the shift knob, and I took it to a woman that I know who makes her own furniture. I'll have an article about this when it comes around being done. And I asked my dad if he could find a shop. The next morning, I was woken by my dad telling me that he found a place. There was a catch. We had to get there today, and they only wanted to do it as a background project. So we drove to pick up a U-Haul trailer. We headed off in a couple hours. And this place was located in Kenosha. You could easily take a look at it and get confused for a Mercedes-Benz dealership due to the fact that the parking lot consisted only of German cars and one H2 Hummer. I mean, I refuse to believe that a single car on that lot was worth less than $80,000, because it was just full of mostly Mercedes-Benzes, but there were some Audis, there was a bunch of BMWs, a Porsche, and we started backing in. My dad's 2016 Colorado. They had a U-Haul trailer, with my corrado on it. We started backing in, and we waited for one of the technicians to move a heavily modified BMW X3 out of the way so we could push my corrado off the trailer and let it roll into the spot where the X3 was. And there it sat. Now, I wrote this article a while back, and little spoiler alert, the corrado doesn't stay there. I'll go into further on this, but otherwise I gotta go, so have a nice rest of the day.